One of the things that I was raised by a man who thought the single greatest sin anyone could commit was to abuse power. The expression my father had from the time we can remember was it takes a small man to hit a small child, and a man never has a right to raise his hand to a woman under any circumstances but self-defense, ever. From 1976 to 1985, violence against men in the age range of 18 to 30 had actually declined by about 12%. I thought I knew about violence. I thought it was the equal opportunity employer. But then I found out during that same period, violence against women went up over 50%. So what was wrong? What was happening here? What was the reason for that? So I ended up holding hearings, literally 1,000 hours of hearings, and voluminous records, bringing in criminologists and psychologists and psychiatrists and legal authorities. And it became absolutely clear that the dirty little secret being kept in this nation, above all of our dirty little secrets, was the extent of violence against women in our society. Violence is a learned behavior. It's a learned behavior. You would think it was a shock to me hearing all this testimony over the years, that the child who watched his mother be abused has a much greater chance of becoming an abuser of a woman than the child who did not witness it. It's a learned behavior. The reason I mention that is, if it's a learned behavior, it can be unlearned. If it's a learned behavior, then there's something we can do about this. Because the system sometimes is impersonal. Well, what I'm trying to do today is I'm trying to set up a network so that not only when the woman calls, not only when the woman reports the crime, not only when she makes that break does she have shelter, but she has someone who knows the law, who will literally guide her through every single step. How do you get that stay-away order? How do you do it quickly?
The National Domestic Violence Volunteer Attorney Network Act brings hope to the lives of many women and children still trapped in abusive homes. Our communities have the power to step up and continue working on the eradication of the war at home. We can do this.
I want to believe that there's a wealth of untapped volunteerism out there in the legal community. Most of the young women and men I know coming out of law school, they want to be for something. They want to be for something. They want to make a difference. I find it very, very disconcerting that I hear on these national programs about the X generation and the Y generation and how they're not as good as we were. They're better. They're better. They volunteer more. They commit more. They're more patriotic than any generation that I've observed in my lifetime. Because I do not want one woman brutalized going through the system and re-brutalized by the system. I hate the term domestic violence. Domestic violence makes it seem like a domestic cat versus a wild cat. This is the most virulent, damaging, and most horrible crime that can be committed. And the reason is, every psychiatrist who testified before my committee over the years, you tend to blame yourself. You look at yourself and say, what did I do? I should have known. Why did I not know that? I must have done something. And the hardest thing to change is that attitude. If I could change anybody's attitude, I would not change the attitude of the men, I'd change the attitude of women. To understand, no man has a right to raise his hand to you under any circumstance. Any. None.